Good afternoon, everyone. It's May 22nd, 2024, and we're here with the Safe Community Committee meeting. I am Councilmember Toohey with Councilmembers Bader and Fossey along with me. So tonight we're going to have a couple of agenda items, the CERT program overview and draft hazard mitigation plan update and briefing, and then we'll have a briefing on the flock safety camera technology for community safety. So with that, we'll get started with our CERT program overview, and tonight we have Emergency Management Director Jim Sandy. So welcome, Jim.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so I started with the hazard mitigation plan update first in my presentation, so that'll be first. So the plan purpose behind the hazard mitigation plan update is to develop long-term strategies for reducing risk and impacts from natural disasters. This plan update is focused on natural disasters. It's not focused on technological or human-caused. We've looked at just strictly natural disasters in this particular plan update. The plan focuses on resilience by identifying hazards, natural hazards. A big part of it is to develop mitigation strategies to deal with and mitigate the identified hazards, and to identify actions to reduce losses from those hazards. So that's kind of the overall plan purpose in the plan update. For background of the plan, it's a requirement for certain grant and federal disaster assistance funding, namely hazard mitigation grant funding. The prior plan was developed in 2018. In June of 2023, we contracted with service provider Bridgeview Consulting to manage and facilitate the plan update. The update began in June, and the kickoff meeting was held in September of last year. There were approximately 27 people on the kickoff team meeting. That planning team grew as we went throughout the plan process. So when we were finished, the planning team and various stakeholders were 58 plus people. That included city, state, tribal, county, Port of Everett, industry, education, healthcare. We tried to incorporate those stakeholders that would be impact in an Everett planning area type of an incident regarding disasters. Plan outreach and information to the community included community meetings, Rotary, CERT, various other meetings, surveys. We stood up a website page on the OEM departmental website, newsletter, press releases, and also social media. So the stakeholder team, planning team, 2024 plan goals include the following here. Protect public health, welfare, and public safety, ensure continuity of critical infrastructure, government, and the economy, foster coordination among public and private organizations, minimize losses that may result from a disaster, and also increase our resilience at the city. So kind of the meat of putting the plan together is in front of you right now. We develop hazard profiles, and those revolve around impacts to people, property, economy, and the environment. We also, a big part of the plan update, FEMA, we utilize FEMA's guidelines in plan development. They updated their program, hazard mitigation plan program that jurisdictions have to follow last year, and so a big piece of their update included climate change and equitable outcomes for the population in the event of a disaster. So those are incorporated in this update. We conducted a risk assessment, and that was relooking at critical facilities that could be impacted in an incident. We talked to, we incorporated the planning department, permitting, Everett planning, Everett permitting, and various other internal Everett departments to identify those critical facilities. And from that, we determined loss based on damages and also population at risk. From that, we developed a risk ranking of the identified hazards, and those were based on probability, likelihood of occurrence, severity, how severe or not, the extent of damages and location, duration, and warning time. Warning time generally falls within, a matter of hours to days, and that's similar with duration. So all those areas under the risk ranking went into how we ranked the hazards. So this is our ranking and that we came up with for the 2024 update. Hazardous materials was incorporated into each identified hazard, and also climate change was in essence incorporated into each identified hazard as well. Those were by and large, climate change was not a separate profiled hazard. It was within each of the other ones. So as you can see, flood and severe weather tied at number 2, earthquake was number 1, and so on.
What would you consider severe weather?
Good question. It incorporates all manner of severe weather. Drought would be an example, severe storm, windstorm, snowstorm. It incorporates all of those type of incidents under that one category, severe weather. After we developed the risk prioritization, we also, a big part of what the plan update entails is to come up with strategies, mitigation strategies to lessen the impact of the identified hazard. So these are some strategies in talking to various, primarily Everett departments, that these are just examples. There are more, and they're in the plan. The draft plan is available online. I'm happy to show you that. It's roughly 300 pages. And so these are just some strategies that were developed as part of this update. So the current status of where we are now. In March, the draft was completed and made available for public review. That was an 18-day review period. Review period actually was longer than that. April 9th, it was submitted to the state for review. As of yesterday, the state completed their review and submitted the draft to FEMA. FEMA, the review timeline is approximately 45 days. We're hoping they're not going to come back with any suggestions. They can't do that, but hopefully the state did not. And so we're hopeful that we'll see what FEMA comes back with, but that is a possibility that they may have a few more areas they want us to look at potentially. After FEMA approval, the plan will be submitted to the City Council for review and adoption. So that's the timeline. So we're looking at right now, including holidays, assuming nothing comes back from FEMA, roughly first part of July is what we're hoping for. I think July 8th is what the service provider indicated yesterday. So that's the overview on the hazard mitigation plan update.
I have a question. I know when I first was elected to city council, I went to the South Precinct and had a tour of an area where, I think it was for when there was a big disaster. Is that all it's all part of what you're doing too? Is that kind of where they would meet? And
yeah, that's
there was a
Emergency Operations
giant
Center,
book
right.
that I took home and.
Yes, and that goes to, I should have spelled this out, I apologize, not use the acronym, but, so that's, one of the mitigation strategies is to enhance, and this is not just for the, Emergency Operations Center is located within the South Precinct. Okay. So, for the city, so there's 9 workstations, monitors, so that's the location from which, assuming it's operational and so on and so forth, that the city would manage operations in the event of an emergency. So this mitigation strategy on bullet 3 here is to enhance the fiber communications capability at the South Precinct, including the EOC.
Great. Do you have any questions? Okay, Councilmember Bader.
A fascinating topic, so my apologies if I have too many questions. So first of all, I'm kind of surprised actually, after we've been through, the pandemic didn't fall in here. I'm assuming we would consider most pandemics not human caused, but where,
Right. So there's another companion document, the hazard identification and vulnerability assessment that was done in 2018. That incorporated pandemics.
okay,
And so that, we by and large, through this update, reaffirmed the HIVA information.
gotcha.
So
So there is a plan out there, but,
the pandemic pandemics are included under the Everett's HIVA document, yes.
okay. On the slide with the hazards ranked, I seems to be, some of those are hazards that clearly would almost certainly impact us citywide, region-wide probably, but some of them are likely to be very localized within the city. You know, I assume, you know, landslide may impact Judy's neighborhood, probably not likely to affect where Mary and I live in Riverside and Delta. Similar with, you know, probably a flood, maybe tsunami, maybe wild. How is it different, planning different for events that are likely to just impact a small part of the city versus things that are likely to impact the whole city?
So I'll go back to the risk ranking component. So the extent and location of the potential hazard was looked at when they were ranked. Does that kind of go to your question?
I mean, in terms of what we do when one of these things happens, obviously, you know, if a landslide was likely to be relatively localized within the city, or maybe a flood, or maybe a wildfire. Do we tend to draw on more city resources in our plan to deal with that threat than we would, say, with an earthquake, or?
Yeah, the hazard mitigation plan update is not necessarily an operational type
Okay,
plan
okay. Good to know.
for a specific type of incidents. That would be more of the comprehensive emergency management plan, which is a separate document, which is due to be updated, state approved by the end of 2026. So we will start working on that document end of this year or next year.
Great, okay. And my third, and I think my last question, you probably knew this one was coming, and maybe this is in the comprehensive emergency management plan, but also in terms of thinking about mitigation, the whole issue of traffic, as we saw last week. You know, if we have an earthquake and 529's down, 2's down, 5's down, is our, where will we be talking about our approach? Hopefully it won't be everybody who needs to get to Marysville or like Stevens or Snohomish, good luck going south and getting over to Highway 9, but that's our plan.
Some of those concepts are also included in the comprehensive emergency management plan, as far as evacuation and, we do have some routes in there. You know, in that example, we've been working heavily with Snohomish County, and in developing, you know, obviously, police fire would be intimately involved in some of that routing information. We would be employing, I foresee, you know, some notification methods from both 911, Snohomish County DEM, and potentially OEM's office as well to do some of that.
Okay. Is there anything we can do in terms of mitigation ahead of time to prepare for something like that, where it's unlikely that those critical routes, north and east, are going to be out, and likely people will be wanting to get in that direction?
I'm not clear exactly where Snohomish County Emergency Management is working on some more all-encompassing, holistic type evacuation plans. So I would probably, because there's so much overlap with their office and the county, I believe that's something that's going to be socialized with police and fire soon, as evacuation. That might be more wildfire. So that would be very much a all stakeholder type of endeavor.
Gotcha, okay. Yeah, just struggling with where mitigation crosses over to operations, so, and anyhow, I guess, in terms of that. So, you know, obviously we learned a lesson last week in terms of what you know, that whatever we had in place didn't, didn't work for a whole bunch of people, but anyhow, so, thanks.
Thank you for bringing up the traffic.
I was trapped, you were probably trapped.
Yeah, I had to park far away and walk home. Yeah, being a peninsula, kind of surrounded by water, creates a lot of challenges. And perhaps I might have missed it. I didn't see it on the rankings anywhere, and I know back when I took CERT forever ago, we did have discussions and conversations about the risks of terrorism and the impact that that can have in particular areas of the city. Is that just not on the ranking as far as anything to really plan for?
Well, it certainly is something to plan for. The focus of this particular update was the natural hazards component. So that's,
Gotcha.
that was more the focus for this.
Great, appreciate that. Any other questions on this one? A lot of planning needs to happen, yeah. All right, thank you. All right, go ahead, Jim.
Okay, moving on to CERT. So kind of the idea behind CERT is base level to teach people how to better prepare themselves and community from hazards. There's two components in that, and CERT training is done to prepare individuals, and it's also designed to prepare the community, public safety, kind of a force multiplier effect for when a disaster occurs to enlist volunteers in the response effort, in basic response efforts. And also, it's designed to have the CERT volunteers participate, available to participate in preparedness events and activities as they so choose. So that's kind of a rough overview in the CERT program itself. Everett CERT history, so the Everett has offered CERT courses since 1999. There's been several hundred. There's probably closer to 1,000 people trained during that time. As of 2014, from when I saw, there were roughly 700 people trained in that program. Everett offers an 8-week training program, 3 hours a day, 3 hours 1 day a week, I should say. And we recently completed our first course since I've been here in March and April of this year. Currently, there are approximately 40 CERT members that are backgrounded and emergency worker certified for this city. COVID impacted a lot of things, to include the volunteer cadre for the city. So we are going back and re-backgrounding a lot of our volunteers. We're soliciting interest to see if volunteers, a lot of them have moved. So we're getting the list kind of reformulated there. And so currently we have 40, and there are other people going through the process. So that should grow and will grow. But that's currently our current cadre. CERT basic training consists of the following main areas: CERT organization, basic disaster medical operations, light search and rescue, fire safety, and that entails mainly, or a lot of it is minor fire suppression, and also disaster psychology. So this is the base level CERT. There's also other courses after that, if a person so chooses, and that would include medical triage, community points of distribution, wires down training, and so there's various other components of that as well. So for this year, in January, we held 2 membership meetings. And that was more of a kickoff, a program kicking off again and getting interest and getting more engaged with the CERT volunteers. Again, we held a course, basic CERT course in March and April. We had about 15 start and 13 graduated. We have 2 trainings, one of which is already held this month, and then we have a triage course towards the end of next Wednesday, I believe. We are incorporating CERT monthly meetings into ACS, and that's Auxiliary Communications Service. That's another volunteer communications organization of volunteers that the city has, and they are emergency workers as well. And for the rest of this year, we hope to have, the plan is to have another CERT basic training in the fall. Dates to be determined. So this was a training exercise, primarily communications, there's other communications services and CERT that was held last Sunday in support of the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. So, and when when CERT is activated, there is a process that we go through. We fill out a state form that enables the volunteers to obtain a certain liability coverage in the event something happens, and that's all the state covered. So there's forms that are filled out. I forget the name of it right now, but there is a process to that. And that is the end of my CERT presentation.
Two questions. What is your capacity looking like as far as are you guys usually really, really full with a waiting list, or?
It depends. For the March offering, we did have a waiting list, and then we had a few people drop out. So we can hold 25 in a class. 25 is maybe pushing it. Both of the other OEM team members are instructors, so they're comfortable. I think 25 is kind of pushing the limit, but for a capacity.
Do you guys offer any Spanish CERT trainings, or is it all exclusively in English?
We have not. There are Spanish options available, and there's a lot of literature on Spanish availability for the CERT program. We have not. That's certainly something we could look into. So,
I know when back in my neighborhood chair days, that it was immensely helpful to have CERT trained neighbors in the preparation just in general. And they tend to be, people that care about the community and that they, want to be trained in that manner. But I know it was very difficult for the protection of their, I guess, personal information. So we were never able to network with them and gain access unless they reached out specifically to us. So I don't know if there's been any changes with that, but it was always really challenging because we wanted to engage with them as a community and organize together for those efforts, but we were never allowed to really contact any of them. So I don't know if there's been any changes to that. And I also wondered, do you actively reach out to the Council of Neighborhoods to let them know about upcoming opportunities?
yes, I believe for the last one, I'm not 100% certain, but I believe we have attended those council neighborhood meetings before. I also, in years past, I'm not sure what year, but when OEM was under fire, they had at least, if I recall correctly, at least one Spanish CERT class, I believe. I'm looking through the old files a while back. So that was, I think, offered.
Thanks. Do CERT volunteers, or at least if they're the current CERT members, are they supposed to have, or do they get any material resources they're supposed to have that they would use to do their work?
Yeah, they are provided, it depends on the class and the resources, but they are required to, sometimes it's provided by the city, depending on the resources availability, CERT backpacks. So that is part of the program when they go through the backpack, and the light search and rescue, triage, items as far as first aid, things of that nature. So that is part of the program, yes.
Gotcha. And I think this might intersect with something we had done or heard about several months ago, but I think the Pinehurst neighborhood folks had, because I think there were a fair number of CERT folks who got through CERT there, had put together that neighborhood cache that they had. And I was kind of surprised the city didn't have a more official role in helping them cite or locate that neighborhood cache or accommodate where it'd be located, because I think they would, and maybe I'm wrong here, but if there are resources in that neighborhood cache, we'd expect or either would expect or would be nice that CERT members had access to. It seems like, is there some collaboration we can do there, if that's the case?
Sure, yeah, and we did work with Pinehurst Beverly Park, and that particular cache, those contents are at OAM for now, and we're waiting to kind of see how that would where those should be located, so.
Okay, I had a couple of questions, and you kind of answered both of those. That was about supplies and whether the CERT program needed any additional resources to continue doing what you do, or just curious about that.
Yeah, we're always on the lookout for more resources, for sure. We did put in for a grant with the state CERT program recently. We haven't heard back. It's pretty limited, or minimal amount. But I believe it's, I forget what state agency kind of manages or oversees the CERT program. It's not the Emergency Management Division. I believe it might be OFM. But we do have a certain amount of CERT backpacks available still that we can give to upcoming classes.
Okay. Well, yeah, keep us posted on that.
Okay.
We do have some ARPA funding for the council to designate this year, so
Okay,
it's always a possibility. And like I mentioned to Jim, my partner went through the CERT program this last go-round, and came home with a lot of, how would we get from Forest Park to Home Depot with all the bridges are down? So we did figure one route. But anyway, it was great. It was a great program, so I really appreciate that. So,
thank you.
okay. With no further questions, we'll move on to the briefing on the flock safety camera technology. We have Chief DeRoos here, and I believe Christine from Flock Safety Camera Technology.
Hi.
Welcome.
Yeah, John DeRoos with the Police Department. I'm excited to be here and talk about this agreement that's going to be coming before council a week from today, the full council. I introduced myself. I'll let my co-presenter introduce herself, and then I'll set some context, and then we'll go through our slideshow.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kristen McLeod. I'm a community engagement manager with Flock Safety. So my job is to go around and educate communities and elected officials on our technology and really what it does and what it doesn't do. So happy to be here tonight. Thank you for sharing your time.
And she's here to make sure I don't mess up. So if you see her kicking me under the table, that's what's happening. The context I wanted to set as we talk about this potential agreement with Flock is a little bit about some history and what led us to today. You may or may not have read an article that was published in the New York Times last week on May 14th titled, "How the Pandemic Reshaped American Gun Violence." In the article, it discusses how gun violence in our communities and in our neighborhoods across the country over the last 2 years has spread out through the whole of communities. We were interviewed, the mayor and I were interviewed for the article, and we're one of the cities that was discussed within it. We weren't surprised by the discussion with the New York Times. We are constantly watching our data and evaluating our data, and we knew there was an impact in our violent crime rates in Everett. And back in December, I had our crime analysts create a heat map that showed where within the community we were seeing the most, and true to the article, it was spreading. We see it in a lot of places, but there were a few places where we saw it much more impactful. Specifically, we saw it in 3 of our city parks. Jackson Park in the north end, Lions Park Central, and Walter Hall Park in the south end, all showed that they were more impacted than other areas in our community. And we wanted to react to that. We wanted to find a way to not only maybe utilize technology and a trusted partner to find ways to better respond, because when we were responding to a lot of these calls, some of them in the middle of the night, people were gone, and most of the time it was in vehicles. And so we just wanted to find a way to improve our investigations, as well as, if we're responding to some of these parks, make sure that our officers could see what's going on within the parks before they get there. We believe that would help keep our officers safe and also the people and the community members that may be around that park safe as we're kind of monitoring what is the activity at the time of the call. So I want to make sure I'm not missing something in my notes here before we start off. I think I covered most of that. This first slide really talks a lot about some of the other data points that I think have influenced our desire to connect with Flock. And it's probably not a surprise to you with fewer resources, with us being shorter staffed, we have to think of new and innovative ways to address some of the challenges you see in these statistics. Across the bottom there, the first stat is last year in 2023, there were 7 amber alerts and 123 silver alerts across the state of Washington. These are missing endangered people with vehicle information connected to their situation. The next data point there, the number of shots fired heard calls in 2023 in Everett, we had 49 of those. So about 20% of the shots fired calls that we were responding to were gone when we got there. And that's, a lot of times that's in vehicles. We'll get reports that a vehicle was seen leaving the area, sometimes with not a lot of information about the vehicle. And the third box there across the bottom, we saw in 2023, our number of motor vehicle thefts compared to the 5-year average went up 39%. 1,263 total stolen vehicles in 2023, or about 3.5 a day. Very impactful, especially to those community members that maybe that vehicle is their only form of transportation. Maybe that's how they get their kids to school. And we wanted a technology that would help us recover these cars quicker. And then the last box there, 17.6% of our wanted DV suspects in 2023 fled in a vehicle. These are the ones that we had developed probable cause for, the ones that we knew they were wanted for a crime related to domestic violence. That's what DV is. And by being able to enter a vehicle plate information into a technology that allows us to find that vehicle quicker, we think that keeps our community safer.
We had already had a high rate of vehicle theft already before this, correct?
Yeah, that's what's so impactful by that number. 39% more than our 5-year average, which was already, I think, way too high.
Okay.
Yeah. So one thing about, I'll just say one more thing about that last statistic I gave you. About a quarter of our homicides over the last 2 years were domestic violence related. So any tool that allows us to maybe intercept suspects before they come back and maybe do something worse to our domestic violence victims, it would be a good tool. So that's why we ended up engaging with Flock, and that's what brought us to this conversation today. A couple of realities. We have reduced police resources. We're down 27 bodies right now in the city of Everett, and we're doing a lot of things to improve our staffing. Things are getting better. We had a couple years there where it was really hard to retain employees, really hard to hire people that wanted to be police officers. Crime, as is discussed in this article in the New York Times, and certainly by any community member that we've had a conversation with that's been a victim of crime, it continues to hurt our communities, and we want people to feel safe in public spaces such as our city parks. And I think as a lot of communities are rebuilding trust, our police response, our ability to respond and solve crimes, is a big part of building that trust. So here's the opportunity. Here's why we're sitting here. The technology, like the technology we'll talk about today with Flock Safety, it multiplies our ability. It leverages the technology to allow us to do good police work. It protects the community and the first responders using this technology, and we'll unpack that a little bit here in a few minutes. It allows us to collect and distribute objective evidence to the right user. So it's pictures of cars, it's video of what's happening in a park when we get a call for service there. And it allows, I think you wanted to touch on this last bullet, right?
Sure. So Flock really believes in making sure that the technology fits your community. And so our platform is really about, and we'll get into it a little bit more, but protecting privacy, and there are accountability mechanisms built into the platform. And we believe in transparency and communication with the community. And so that's what that bullet point is really about.
So there's a lot of words on this slide, but I'll start off by talking a little bit about what we are including in the agreement. A lot of their products are across the top there, and I apologize, I know you can't, they're all named after birds. So the Falcon is the license plate reading camera, and in this agreement, we want to lease 74 of them and place them in and around the arterials leading into the 3 parks that I discussed a few minutes ago. The Raven is gunshot detection. It's not a part of this agreement, but you guys have heard me talk about it at council before. Eventually, I would love to see us have gunshot detection in the city, but it's not a part of this agreement. The Condor is the pan-tilt zoom camera, and I mentioned that the Falcon is 74 cameras as a part of this agreement. We want to put 1 Condor in each of the parks. So 1 Condor at Jackson Park, 1 Condor at Lions Park, and 1 Condor at Walter Hall Park. And this is for situational awareness purposes, and we're also going to talk about that in a minute. Do you want to talk about all these other words that are on this line?
Sure.
Or some of them anyway?
So, and then the wing is another piece
I
of
forgot that
hardware. That's okay. That's more of an adapter. So existing cameras in the community, it acts as an adapter to weave in that technology into the Flock platform. So it's all kind of a one-stop shop.
But not a part of our agreement either. It's
Correct.
just the Falcon and the Condor that are a part of this agreement that you'll see coming up next week.
Yes. So the top is how Flock, our hardware, how we detect wanted vehicles and detect the information that is critical to law enforcement. And then we decode with our machine learning and AI, and that's really just, different pieces kind of go to the different pieces of hardware, and but it's making sense of all of the mountains of information. And today we'll focus on Condor and Falcon, and the Flock platform is able to take all of that information and really distill it into using the objective information and distill it into easy to search information that will get officers the information that they need very quickly. And then touching on that a little bit, segueing into delivering the information. So our LPR cameras will detect a wanted vehicle and send an alert to an officer within 20 seconds when that vehicle passes by one of the cameras.
And so that, that delivery comes right to the officer's department-issued cell phone or to the laptop right in their car. So this is part of leveraging technology. I don't have to put an officer in a room looking at this and then relaying it. All of it's done by the software that's associated with Flock Safety. And so we'll jump right in and talk a little more about the Falcon. This is the one that we're getting in bulk, 74 cameras, like I said, across the city, but primarily on the arterials into those 3 parks. And this, I'm going to hand this slide over to Kristen, but this is basically what you get with the Flock Safety Falcon. It is a still shot of the rear of a vehicle as it passes by. You want to talk about it for a bit?
Sure. So these are placed in fixed locations. And again, it's capturing the rear of a vehicle, and it focuses on that. Our machine learning then takes that image and the information contained in that image and organizes it into searchable information. So the color and the make of the vehicle, the license plate, the state, any special features as well. So we provide all of the maintenance, and so that the officers can really focus on utilizing the tool, and Flock will provide support with all of that. We're infrastructure free. It's really kind of we want it to be a plug and play. It's 24/7 coverage. These are motion detected cameras. They're operating 24/7. They're connected on the back end. They're integrated so that officers are getting real-time alerts from the National Crime Information Center. So again, wanted vehicles, information from that national database is integrated into the back end of Flock, and that will generate alerts for officers. We are also integrated with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, so AMBER alerts, as well as state silver alerts, and custom hot lists. So Chief, if you want to maybe describe what a hot list is.
Yeah, so I was talking about those DV crimes, those domestic violence crimes before. An officer could respond to maybe a partner chokes out their significant other. We respond, we do an investigation, we establish probable cause for that crime. We know they left in a certain vehicle. We could enter that vehicle into the custom hot list, and a person in another part of the city may get an alert on their phone or their laptop that that vehicle just drove by this fixed location. So it allows us to then respond to where that vehicle was last seen, hopefully stop a vehicle and make an arrest. Not only because it's good to make these arrests early in domestic violence cases, but also the last thing we'd want is them to circle back and do something worse.
So I have a little question on that. So as far as a vehicle driving by that is not in any of the databases, the camera wouldn't pick any of that up?
So the cameras are motion activated, so every time any vehicle passes by the camera, it's going to capture an image of the rear of that vehicle. Now, an officer would not be alerted to that vehicle unless it was wanted.
Okay.
Then the information, that still image is stored for 30 days, and in the event a vehicle is involved in a crime, officers can go into the system and search for that suspect vehicle. So they're able to obtain that objective evidence. Now, all of the license plates that are not involved in a criminal investigation or not wanted by police, those images are hard deleted and unrecoverable at the 30-day mark. You're welcome, thank you.
Any more on the slide?
And then just a note, we're ethically built, there are no people, there is no way to search for people in our system, there is no facial recognition technology, this is not speed tracking, and it's solely to provide that indiscriminate evidence to officers. We talked a little bit about the integrations with NCIC and Amber Alerts. This is really highlighting that in real time, when that wanted vehicle passes by one of the cameras, the officers will be alerted to that.
Yeah, one of the things we didn't talk about earlier, which is really interesting with this product, is let's say you're at Jackson Park and there's a shooting and you see the vehicle leave, but all you remember it was a black vehicle. You don't have a plate, but it had a roof rack on it and a bumper sticker. This technology is distinct enough. You can enter that information in, and it will return the black vehicles with roof racks and bumper stickers. So it is really a very good tool when trying to take just general information on the calls that we respond to and investigate the crimes and allow us to narrow it down to a specific suspect. Did we cover most of this already or no?
Yep, this is the vehicle fingerprint.
Oh, I was ahead. I was one slide ahead, yeah.
Just being able to, in the event that you don't have a license plate number, that happens, I think, quite frequently. We're able to, again, take that description of the vehicle and still use the information, as well as temporary tags.
So this is what this technology is, and we're talking specifically about the Falcon license plate readers. It's license plate recognition. It's reading plates and vehicle descriptions, like we were just talking about. It's gathering objective evidence, snapping a picture so that we can look at it and say, what does the evidence tell us that we're looking at? It alerts police of wanted vehicles, also alerts police for people that are missing and in danger that are entered into the system. It's used to solve crimes like we've been talking about, and it adheres to all state laws. More importantly, sometimes is to describe what it's not, right? This is what we spent some time in the community having discussions about over the last week or so. It's not facial recognition. It's not a collection of biometric or sensitive information. It's not used for tracking speed, right? We have cameras in the city. That's a completely different system. That's not this. It's not used for parking violations or infractions, not used for immigration enforcement or monitoring a First Amendment expressive activity. Really important point. It's been said a few times. I don't think we can say it enough. It has the shortest retention of anything else we collect. The data automatically deletes if it's not being used for a criminal investigation on a 30-day rolling calendar. So if something today that gets recorded on a camera, if it's not used for a criminal investigation and not uploaded to our other evidence, digital evidence platform, it hard deletes and we cannot get that information. I cover everything?
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
So, with all of these, data collection things, there's always concerned about, people misusing them. The folks that search and utilize this, are those searches like recorded and tracked, monitored and everything?
Yes, and I think we have a slide on it. If we could just pause, we'll go through that and we'll get to it. I've already messed up once. I don't want to keep messing up, but no, we'll get to it. It's actually one of the most important pieces of this technology, I think. So, how does the technology deter and eliminate crime? It's proactive. It gives us real-time alerts. points officers and cars in the right direction when people that have committed crimes or that are in need of assistance are passing through certain parts of our city. It also is an investigative tool. It allows us to go back up to that 30 days. For example, let's say you're on vacation, your car's stolen, a week and a half, it's been driving around our city. We would be able to go in and see where that vehicle was and maybe help you recover it the day you get back, because we'll know what the last camera it passed by was within that 30 days. And then the last one I think is really important to mention. It is a deterrent. We've seen some of the actions of this city over the last few years. We take action as a council, we take action as a police department, the word gets around, right? Criminals talk, and if they know you're coming into Everett and you're gonna get stopped because these cameras are gonna notify law enforcement, they're gonna choose somewhere else to go. I hope they don't do anything anywhere else, but they will choose somewhere else to go because that message will be loud and clear. So that's the LPRs. I want to talk a little bit about the Condors. These are the pan, tilt, zoom video cameras. They're different than the LPRs, and we're only getting 3 of these in this agreement. And we're putting, like I said, 1 each in 3 of the parks. Do you want to touch on this? And then,
Sure.
yeah.
So this is really giving officers more context and more information, that situational awareness to be able to see what is going on in a park before responding. So really getting them critical information real time. This is no IT required. It's 100% cloud-based. No servers are needed. Officers are able to view live feed or investigate previous crime incidents. Software is included, the hardware, the cellular, all through, and all of this is in one platform. So the LPR technology, as well as the Condor views, it's in a one-stop shop platform. And then the Condors also are remote pan, tilt, zoom controls, again, giving officers that better ability to have that situational awareness and know what is happening in that park from a safe distance so they can develop a plan safely to respond.
And what I imagine when I think about this is that we get, let's say, a shooting in a park, and officers are responding. An officer would be able to go in and look at this camera and say, yeah, the suspects all just ran westbound, or the suspects are all gone, or there's a body laying there that looks like it's bleeding. We need to get aid started to that location. It's a situational awareness tool, but it's different than the LPRs, which snap a photo of the back. This is video, right? And just like the LPRs, whoever's using it is recorded. So we're very clear we can go back and audit, and we'll talk about that in just a moment as well. Do we have to talk about anything on this slide? I think that kind of rehashes
Yep.
everything we just talked about. Just talks a little bit more about the pan, tilt, zoom. We're not getting a fixed camera, which is the one on the right, and it's got some of the features of the camera itself.
And then Flock will assist with procurement, permitting, installation, all of that. Again, we want it to really be a tool for your officers to use.
And we've had dialogue with Public Works and IT, and it's passed all their tests as well. So again, the slide of what it is and what it's not. It's designed for situational awareness. That's how we're going to use it. We're going to include in our policy the strict use of these cameras. It's encrypted data stored on a device and in the cloud by the strictest of standards, AWS data banks. It's accessible via audible search, which is kind of what was asked a few minutes ago by Councilmember Fossey. It's used to solve crime and maintain officer and community member safety, and I think I've touched on a lot of that already. What it's not, again, not facial recognition. Yes, it's capturing images, but it's not going to be able to identify people in the camera. It's not a collection of biometric or sensitive information. And like the LPR cameras, automatically deletes within 30 days. It's not kept longer than that, and we cannot recover it after that point. And it's not designed as a continuous monitoring tool. We will not have officers just sitting there looking for people doing something wrong in the park. It's a response tool to a crime or another incident involving life safety.
So someone would have to call 911, and then you guys would respond by looking at this and getting there.
Or we'd have some other information that would come to us that would lead us to need to use the camera.
Okay.
Sometimes we get information in other ways. 911 is probably
Yeah.
the most prominent way
Okay.
that we would get the information. This is yours, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes. So Flock is really grounded in, and we understand that there may be privacy concerns from your community members, and we really believe in protecting privacy, and we've built in accountability mechanisms into the system. To protect privacy, number one, the footage is owned 100% by the city. Flock will never sell or share the data, period. Legacy providers, that was an issue, and Flock really believes in this is your information and your data. So that is very clear in a contract that we will never sell or share. That 30-day data retention, the information is automatically hard deleted, as Chief mentioned, unless it is retained in their evidence repository system as part of a criminal investigation. This really takes the human bias out of crime solving by by only detecting objective data. It's really focused on when a wanted vehicle passes by an LPR camera, it's taking a photo, you will have that location information. The Condor is, officers are able to access a historical video and also live feed, again, for that situational awareness, and it really gives that picture as to what is occurring real time. All of the data is stored securely with end-to-end encryption in the Amazon Web Services government cloud. Accountability mechanisms, that's a tongue twister. A search reason and employee ID is saved indefinitely for an audit trail. So with the LPR, a search reason is required to access any of the footage. With the Condor, when a user is accessing historical footage, that an event log is created, so that user ID, when that person accessed the footage and for how long, as well as those live stream views, all of that is captured in an event log. And that allows administration to go back and ensure that the system is being used per policy.
And I'll just inject quickly
Yep.
here. We'll set up reoccurring audits for the software. We'll have our system administrator go in and review how and when it's being used and compare it to the case the officer was investigating to ensure that it's being used correctly. And that we'll get to a public-facing dashboard here in a minute. Those audits, the reoccurrence of those audits will be posted on the public-facing dashboard, so our community knows that we're auditing it. Sorry.
Again, no facial recognition software, no biometric information, not used for immigration enforcement or monitoring First Amendment activities. We are also not connected to registration data or third-party databases such as DMV or Carfax. And Chief just mentioned the public-facing transparency portal, which is a unique feature to Flock. And this is a example of a department in California, their transparency portal. It's completely customizable for each agency. This agency chose to share what their system is detecting, what it's not detecting. They have a link to their LPR policy down at the bottom of that page. That long block of text is a list of all of the other law enforcement agencies that California agency chose to share with. So because your city owns 100% of the footage, the department is able to allow or disallow other law enforcement agencies access to the information.
You said that the 30-day retention, is it not subject to public records?
We believe there's a few areas of this technology that would be subject. The ones that are used for criminal investigations would eventually be subject to not only disclosure to the other party in a criminal investigation, but also once that criminal investigation is done, people could make public disclosure requests for that. I think I said that right.
Yep.
Anything else on this slide?
And then just a note about, so this is a public-facing dashboard or web page that your community can see how the system is being used. Flock generates this. It's not generated by the department. So really great to show exactly kind of how the system is being used. And then internally, we have an insights dashboard for the administrators of your system. And that gives Chief the ability to look and see, are we using this system? What is the return on investment? Are we impacting the types of crimes that we want to with this technology? The audit search history is contained there as well. And then we also, while Flock monitors the health of the cameras and the functionality, the administration would be able to look in and peek at the health of the cameras as well. I think that's it on that.
All right. I know we're going to run out of time, so I want to fast forward through stuff that you can look at on the presentation itself. It's mostly self-explanatory how it works. It's solar powered, where it gets put up, that kind of thing. And then these are the cities in the state of Washington that currently have Flock. There's many more almost every day we hear are trying to sign on. There was a homicide suspect located in Tukwila using the technology that we described. There was a person in a park that was assaulted in Liberty Lake that they were able to track down using the LPR system. And then maybe here's the most important part. This is why I wanted to get to this. So we've been actively looking at what technology works great for us, but in the same breath, knowing that what we're dealing with in our budget deficit issues, I wanted to also make sure we found funding for it. So both the Washington Auto Theft Prevention Authority and Project Safe Neighborhoods are two organizations that we applied for grant funding. You can imagine 77 cameras. There's some expense there. It's about $250,000 a year. And both of these organizations have stepped up. We're in the final steps of and processes of getting grants through both these organizations to help us pay for it for 2 years. So it's not going to be costing Everett taxpayers money. And maybe is going to actually save us a lot of money when we start solving some of these crimes and get people's property back and help them feel safer. Okay, I feel like I didn't take a breath the whole time. I'm sure there's questions. We only have a few minutes here, but also we're available through Jennifer or Angie to reach out to us for additional ones before next week.
Yeah, that was great. I don't know if you have any more questions? Okay, go ahead.
One quick one. So at the parks, where are you thinking of like positioning these? Because those parks are pretty.
Yes, I'm not sure. Yeah, I wish I had an answer there. Jeff Albright, one of our lieutenants, has been doing a real heavy lift on this. Actually, the whole team. I got to give a shout out to just the whole team and Flock as well. Everybody's been doing a lot of work. He is actively working with not only Public Works, but also the Flock install team to find out what's the best location. You would think that 77 cameras would maybe cover the whole city. Not really. Like when you start figuring out which intersections they go in, which part of the park is the best place for it to go, starting small with the parks, just one of these video cameras in the parks, and seeing, how it works, what the public's thoughts are on it. I don't know if there's a magic place in each park. I'm hoping there is, but the short answer is I'm not sure. Yeah.
I have a question from that. How far away can the camera in the parks pick up?
Yeah.
So there's different levels and we kind of break it up into categories, being able to, identify that there is a person at a certain distance versus and getting better details as you get closer. I don't have that off the top of my head, but I can certainly get you that information.
Well, it said 25X in the presentation. This is, we bootlegged Flock's safety's presentation. What I will say, though, to add on to somebody that may be watching this and is curious, we have other policies like our our unmanned aerial systems policy that says officers will not be using the video associated with that to look into areas that have constitutionally protected privacy. The same will apply for this policy. If we put the camera up in the video camera, they can look around the park, but without some other exception or a search warrant, they can't look into areas where people would expect to be private. They can't look in people's windows. That would be a violation of our policy.
I was thinking more just how big parks are, so.
Yeah, well, 25
yeah.
times, it should at least give us some situational awareness. At
Yeah.
least I'm hopeful that it will.
That's great. All
Yeah.
right, Councilmember Bader.
One quick question. And maybe I'm confusing the capabilities of Flock versus Condor, but say somebody commits some vandalism at the play equipment at Jackson Park, or commits an arson against the restrooms there, is this technology going to help us catch that, or
Yes.
really? Okay.
So it was, you said flock, but it's falcon for the LPR. I know, I know. I'm not making fun of you, but I'm making fun of you. Falcon and Condor, Falcon's the license plate reader, Condor, it is the one, the Condors, which will be in the parks, will have video that will be retained for up to 30 days.
Gotcha.
So if we get a report 2 weeks later, they've discovered that, somebody destroyed a bathroom, maybe it's the winter time and nobody noticed, we would be able to go back and check 2 weeks prior on that video.
Okay.
To see what occurred there.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Well, thank you. I'm sure you'll have lots of questions on council, so.
Yeah, I'll just add one more piece if you
Yes.
don't mind. Natalie Given, who's our PIO right now, our Public Information Officer, today, and may be done, it may be posted already, was working on an information page for our website. It may already be there. I didn't have time to check before I came down here. It's got everything on there, including, I think, a video about Flock, and people that have questions from the community that want to ask the police department. There's an email there. It's just our police internet one, police@everettwa.gov. So if people are watching this and have questions, they can certainly email us. We monitor that
Great.
email every day. And, I want to be able to answer questions. I mean, I want to be as
Absolutely.
transparent as we can, and I want to be able to answer questions about this if there's concerns.
Great, appreciate it. Thank you so much, Kristen,
Thank
for
you.
coming. So other than that, Jennifer, what do we have anything on the docket for next month yet?
I think we kind of do. So I'm pretty sure I've confirmed that we have a community awareness team Block Watch update.
Oh, okay, great. I see that down here.
And then I don't know, I'll have to check with staff, but we might have downtown street safety. That's a topic you asked
Yeah.
about, I think some others do. And then, same thing with the buffer zone implementation
Great.
recap. So
That would
I gotta
fill us up.
check with this relevant staff, but I think that would make for a
Great.
good agenda.
Well-
And if one of those falls through, then I'll see what I can pull from the list there.
Okay.
Could I
Yes.
just jump in? I think last week we had someone coming to us raising concerns about noise again. So again, I'd like to highlight where noise is in terms of this. I know it's on our list.
I know I just
but-
literally sent an email to the staff that are working on the noise ordinance. I got an auto reply. She's out till,
Understood.
through the holiday
Right.
weekend, but I'm with you. I'm working on it.
Gotcha. And then two other, and I know obviously we have a narrow funnel to get things through, but obviously we had some, nationally, I think there've been a lot of issues regarding squatters. And so someone raised the question of, is there anything the city of Everett could do legally to help head off any kind of squatter type issues that we've seen pop up in other parts of the country as well? And I don't know if that's a question for, and I don't even expect it to be answered now, but I'm just wondering, and I don't know what Everett's ability to do something legally versus state versus whatever, but just throwing it out there, that's something that someone had raised to see if we could be proactive if there's a need to tighten any kind of rules we have, as well as encampments too. So thanks for considering those.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Well, thank you to our guests tonight. Very informational. Appreciate it. And that's it. Thank you.